There we go.
Independent Showcase. Oh, I think it's episode 4 or 5. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 now, but episode 800 and something of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Welcome, everybody. As I said, it's another independent showcase, and I've got a namesake on the show with me. Someone that's making waves in certainly made waves in 2024, looking to make bigger waves in 2025. And as of recording, or 3 days prior to recording, retained his TDW Pride Championship. It is Mr. Adam Bolt. Good evening, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How is the weather where you are? Is it as cold as it is down near Essex?
To be honest, tonight it's not been that cold. I've had a dog for about 3 weeks and I took him for a walk today and I was expecting it to be colder, so it's not that bad today.
No, that's all right then. The weather's been stupid over here. I know it's bad in America. In one half they got snow and the other half they got fire. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been pretty crazy over here in the UK. But let's talk about you, Adam. First off, welcome. And second off, look, 2024 for you. I was reading up on some of your matches in 2024. It's always best to start with the year previously. And you took on a good friend of mine nearly about a year ago today, under the name of Mr. Scotty Rourke.
Oh, yes.
How was your 2024 in general, though, Adam?
In general, it's the biggest year I've had, easily. I had some goals at the start of 2024. Didn't really, get off running until about the spring. So I'd say like April time. Um, to be honest, it was just stuff in my personal life that just made me like, do you know when you feel like things go wrong and then you look to an escape, and wrestling was that escape, and it motivated me. And then since then, from April till the end of the last year, sorry, 2024, it's been the best year I've ever had in wrestling, to be honest.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. And obviously, I'm not going to ask you for your goals in 2025. Never do that. But how are you looking to improve on 2024 into 2025?
I think for me, it's just carrying on the momentum I built. I mean, in the places I'm already at, so, I've been working at True Grit Wrestling, their current Pride champion, Phenomenal Elite Wrestling in Stratford upon Avon, had their Internet Championship and still hold their Tag Team Championship. So there's places like them too, and, like WAW that I've been down to in Norwich that I work at, that I want to continue the momentum in. But I've recently gone back to TNT Extreme Wrestling in Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
So places like that and some of the bigger promotions, the bigger stages, I want to carry the momentum over to there and just start getting, noticed in them bigger places for this year, I think.
Interesting you mentioned WAW. Obviously, there's a significant family involved in WAW. How much do you, when you're there and you've got all that experience, do you really tap in? Do you get a chance to tap into them a little bit in terms of asking for advice and such?
Yes, I do. Yeah. So I remember the first Pride show they had. It was 2022, I believe. Yes, it was. And I opened the show in the triple threat, and at the time, Zach was there. Zach Knight. I had a great conversation with him. He actually offered me and my tag partner Jack to stay rather than drive back home,
Oh, really?
which was the first time I'd met him, and I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, they've always been great to me. So I love Sway Knight and Ricky Knight as well. They're really good to me. I get a lot of time with them when I'm down there, and they always show appreciation for me, even coming down, just doing the 3-hour drive just for that one show, even if it is just that. So yeah, they're really great to me, to be honest.
I have to give, I mean, I'll tell you the quick story about Zach for me, because, and it's quite a personal one. So I was talking with Zach prior to the first AEW All In. Then about a week before All In, I suffered heart failure. I was in hospital in Cornwall for about a week. So I ended up missing the first All In. And I was messaging Zach anyway on X or Twitter as it was then. And I told him everything was going on. And he was at a Rev Pro a couple of weeks after. I'd been released from hospital, got discharged, all okay. And I went to Rev Pro. Him and Ricky RKJ, I was there. They wrestled. They come on, I think, just after the break. And at the end of the show, obviously, wrestlers, as you guys do, you go to your merch and you set up your merch and whatnot. And I don't normally stay for that because, I just want to have to travel back to Essex, and sometimes it can be, if the trains are playing up. I'm never going to drive in London. It's just hideous trying to drive around London. Anyway, and they were setting up their merch, and I'd got my coat and I started to walk, get up and walked away from my chair, and Zach turned around and his eyes clocked mine. And he knew who I was. And not only did he know that, he said to Ricky, hold the fort. And he come over to me, embraced, and it was just like, talking about everything that happened. And he was actually on the show quite recently, Zach just before Christmas, I think he was on. Yeah, and he's just such a great guy. I think reputation can sometimes get the better of people, and it's only when you
Yeah,
actually spend some time with people like Zach and those guys. And RKJ was great as well when I spoke to him
yeah,
there. So
I agree.
only a case of reputation sometimes can precede somebody when they shouldn't be. And Zach's a wonderful, wonderful person in my book anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to you, I don't want to talk about me. Like I said before, I don't necessarily talk about how you got going and all of that sort of stuff. But when you were training, I done training for about a week or so, and I learned very quickly and very painfully that this wrestling wasn't going to be. I'm better off sitting behind a microphone. But when did you start to sort of think, hang on a minute, during the training, this is anyway, I might have something here.
So when I did start training, it was 2018 at the beginning. Don't get me wrong, it was something I've always wanted to do, even since I was a kid. But the short version of it is,
Mm.
growing up, I never tried doing it because I was always the smallest kid in the room. It was only the boom in, seeing things like, because when I was a teenager, I only watched WWE. So seeing things like
Yeah.
NXT happen and these guys like Sami Zayn, Finn Balor come in, who were smaller, made me start thinking, okay, maybe I could try it. So anyway, fast forward when I actually did go to my first training school. I've always been naturally athletic, but even when I say naturally athletic, I didn't think I had the athleticism that I've learned that I do have now. So it was just getting in the ring and feeling what a ring is like, and the ropes and how the mat feels and the turnbuckles, things like that. I think it was a couple of weeks in, and some of the people started to compliment me on how athletic or I was or how I moved and things like that. And then that's when I thought, if I stick at this, then maybe I could really make a go of it.
Mm.
So yeah, it was probably a few weeks in, but it's hard to say that because when you first turn up to something you've always wanted to do, you're just happy to be there.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And then when that moment came when you get that first show or that first booking, how does that day? Does it feel surreal that you've done all this training, and you may have done matches in training that times can happen, but when you're going out there, and I say the lights are on bright, but we spoke before, just before we went on air, and you were saying about you didn't have any lights for a show, but yeah, the lights are on bright, and yeah, look, it doesn't matter whether there's 5 people, 500, 5,000 people. You're walking out first time, entrance music's on, you turn into this character though. But how does that feel like for you for that very first time?
The very first time it was I mean, for everybody, there's a level of nerves. There always is.
Mm.
Um, it it is hard because you're dealing with like a million emotions at once. I mean, I had my sister and some family there coming to watch me because they knew I'd always followed it. And
Yeah.
then there was the pressure to deliver. I think my first match, it was something like a four corners tag match, which was elimination. And I had one tiny bit, and then my team was out first.
Yeah.
So I didn't get overexposed, but I was also out there for a very short amount of time. In my first match, believe it or not, I think the only notable thing I did was a moonsault from the top to the outside in my first match. And that's all anybody remembered from me because nobody on the show I was doing did that. But even doing that, like I'd never done it. I'd done it because the training school we had, the ring was so small, and then it had like scaffolding of like the roof around it, so I couldn't practice that. So even knowing I was about to do that, like I'd been on a trampoline when I was younger, but I'd never done that in front of people, onto people as well. So there was a million emotions. It was nerves, it was pressure. I think I naturally feel pressure and nerves together because the nerves don't come from being nervous about the show. They come from holding myself to a standard where I want to deliver as best I know I can. So that's where the nerves and the pressure come from me. And I've had that since day one, from that first show even till now.
I was going to say, do you still get it now? And the answer to that is yes. Then you still get those nerves for the pressure. When you go after a while, and then you get the promotion that you're working for says, Adam, you're going to win the title. Whether that's one night, whether you get told in advance, is
Yeah.
irrelevant. But when you get that message, or you even have an inkling, and then that inkling and inkling turns out to be right, you're going to win a championship. It doesn't matter what promotion, how big or small that promotion is. The fact that their promotion is going to put a championship on you, meaning that ultimately you're the one really that people are paying to see. They want to see you. They want to see you defend that title. They might want to see you lose that title. But ultimately, that championship is put in that pressure, more pressure, sorry, but more that prestige on you. When you had when you got that initial message, you're winning a championship. Was the nerves even higher? Was you excited? Was you like shitting yourself in a lot of ways because because it was your first championship in Brit Rest?
Yeah, so the first championship I won was it's a championship called the Phoenix Heavyweight Championship for an old promotion in my hometown, really, around Doncaster, Sheffield area. Dave Stewart, somebody who I used to train with years ago, runs a show once a year for Cavendish Cancer in the name of Chris Travis, called One More Round in Sheffield. And he has that belt as like a yearly thing. And I got told I was winning that. Now I started not long after Chris Travis had passed, so I'd never met him.
Yeah.
So then instantly I had that pressure of this belt is kind of living a legacy of somebody who means a lot to a lot of people, but I never knew. So there was that, and then my family were there. It was in my hometown, so like everything felt right. And a few years later, that day meant even more to me because at the time when I won that belt, I didn't know that that would be the last time my nana would watch me wrestle either. So there's things like that that went into it. But yeah, just being told that I was getting that championship. I mean, it's always exciting for somebody new. You know, when you get your first championship, it's always exciting. And anybody who says it isn't would be a liar. Like, it is exciting because, you know, that's what you watch it as a kid for years. You watch people hold championships and you always think it's cool as a kid and you want one. So when I first got it, like, yeah, it was massive as well because I was main event in a show. Like I say, that meant a lot to a lot of people. So yeah, it's an insane feeling. I can't. I don't think words can even describe it. To be honest.
No, I can say the best thing to come out of Yorkshire or Hull is Alexis Falcon. No,
Yes, hard to disagree.
I think I think that's the thing. Isn't the best thing that come out of Hull since Dean Windass or something along those lines is Alexis's thing. But when you were growing up and watching wrestling, one of the questions I do like is what wrestlers did you sign? Maybe you sort of saying Finn Balor because of the size thing, but who was the ones that you were looking up to, or even worked your character? Did you work your character around any particular wrestler?
So it's quite an interesting question because I did, but I didn't realize I had until somebody pointed it out to me. So when I was younger, my favorite wrestler through and through was Shawn Michaels. Always, it's the earliest memory I have. I always tell this story that the earliest memory I have in life was seeing this man make his entrance on this TV show, and that's what hooked me on wrestling. And then it wasn't until I got older that I watched wrestling back, and I had this deja vu moment where what I was actually watching, sorry, was WrestleMania 14, and it was
Yeah,
Shawn Michaels' entrance. So putting a timescale together, that means that that memory I have of watching that, I must have been about 3 years old. So that got me hooked, and I loved Shawn Michaels, always did. So when you look at Shawn Michaels' entrance and just his character, his charisma, like the flamboyance of it, when I, without actually meaning to, when I look at who Adam Bolt is and then Shawn Michaels, like I can see a lot of similarities, like the gear, the entrance, like the personality, like
yeah.
it is there. And somebody else made that link. I'd not even realized that I'd kind of took inspiration from my favorite wrestler, which is quite dumb of me when you think about it. I mean, that is something I probably would have aimed to do. But yeah, so Shawn Michaels was my favorite growing up. So
You ever had the pleasure of meeting him?
oh no, I'm. I wish I've like when I never went to the live events like when he was wrestling full time for WWE. My first one I think was 20. It's weird because I'd watched it for years, but I'd never made it to until about 2015, I think, an
Okay.
episode of Raw. So I'd never actually met him. Still haven't to this day.
So it wouldn't be right for me to say I've met him like 4 times.
No, that'd be quite awful. Quite
Sorry,
awful.
I've met him. When did I meet him? First, I think the first time was WrestleMania 26. Yeah, 26 at Phoenix, Arizona. No, 27 in Atlanta, Georgia. That was the year that we done the proper loop. We met Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Triple H, Cena, Edge. Edge is one of my personal favorite. Rey Mysterio. But Rey Mysterio, I think, is the only wrestler that I'm probably bigger than the ones that I met. You talk about the size thing. I say I'm privileged of meeting Undertaker twice. Shawn was great. I met him at WrestleMania. I done it. There was a convention in London that he went to. And then it was maybe even 3 times. It was a Inside the Ropes show. So Inside the Ropes do a lot of shows around the
Yeah.
UK, and he was one of them. But I got a picture of him and Brett. It was after where they made
Oh,
up. That was quite a good picture, and I've got the one doing the DX suck it thing as well. So yeah, I've had a
of
privilege. He's
course.
a great guy. Anyway, I digress. You mentioned Shawn. Look, when you look at wrestling nowadays, and you say you've watched it since 2015, so a lot has changed in say 10 years that you've watched it. But going back to training, though, before I say that, is there a piece of advice that you were given that is literally embedded in your brain that you will never ever forget?
Yes. So the advice I've carried I can't even tell you who it was that said it to me, but it's always stuck with me. The best advice I ever got given was take a piece. If you're struggling for character or anything like that, take something about yourself and turn it up to 100.
Mhm.
Um, at the time, I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I? But then I started thinking about standing out. So I'm like, right, a lot of wrestling fans and wrestlers, they are into, like rock music, metal
Yeah.
music, hence a lot of the entrance music. I'm not.
Yeah.
My brother is, can't stand it. I'm not going to lie to you. Just doesn't, it's just not there for me. And then, like, even things like as simple as going to the gym or going out for something to eat, or I always will not leave the house without thinking, at least me thinking, I look good or making an effort. Things like doing my hair all the time. So it's like I started noticing them things were things that, in a weird way, in wrestling makes me stand out. Not to say other people don't do that,
Yeah.
but somebody like me who is into things I'm into, you don't necessarily connect to wrestling. So I was thinking, right, okay, so that makes me different. So this turn it up to take something about yourself and turn it up to 100. I'm thinking, imagine somebody like that who could come across as almost like somebody that's just walked off of Love Island or something. In my mind, I'm thinking that is somebody that is easy to hate.
Mm.
But and then with my move set and with me being smaller and you can gather sympathy from people, that's also somebody that you could learn to love. So I'm like, if I can nail this and get the character there with bringing the personality and bringing it all together, like I should, in theory, be able to get people to hate me or love me, depending on which side of the bed I wake up on. And it's worked. So, like, that advice is probably the one that's embedded in me. And it's the same advice I give at House of Pain Wrestling, my training school now. When we have people ready to debut, I say that to them because it worked for me. It won't work for everyone, but it's obviously done me the world of good. So,
Yeah, definitely so. I've noticed that you've also been in a tag team, Big Man Inc. as well. And I was going to say you took on another one of my friends, but this was a couple of years ago, Jay Joshua. He was in.
oh, I love Jay Joshua. Yes.
He's a great. My girlfriend loves smelling his deep heat.
Like, you say Jay Joshua and I can smell it already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally, there's a
Fine
couple of
Buster.
guys. Yeah, there's
Fine
a.
Buster tapings a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
wrestled him again.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, DP.
There's a couple of them that you can really. James Ellis is another one that uses it, and there's loads of people that use it. But anyway, going back to my question that I was going to get to, you've been a tag team, you're single. Is it? Do you prefer singles on tag teams, or is there a preference for you?
I mean, I feel like in terms of success, and like, I feel like there is more success to be had individually. Of course, there is. It's wrestling, but in terms of me growing as a person and the psychology of wrestling, I think there's something to be said for tag team wrestling. Makes you
Yeah.
think no other position does. The
Mm.
amount of I even just training with Ivy and Brady Phillips, who a lot of people know refer to as my wrestling mum and dad, just having things like tag rules embedded into my brain to the point where I cannot have a match and not stick to tag rules because I know the first two people that will be chasing after me would be them two if I did. Being in a tag team, the psychology of wrestling, like, and just always learning as well. Like, there's always things to do. There's always somewhere to be creative or do something people haven't seen. So I prefer being like on my own and having success on my own. Yeah, but I think you can almost feel like a sense of pride doing a good job in a tag team than you can on your own because like there's a lot more thought that goes into tag team wrestling, a lot more moving parts as well.
Yeah. There is. There's another moving part is in a triple threat, and the only reason I say that is you've been in one of the fortunate many. One our first turnbuckle champion. He's not our champion anymore, unfortunately. That was Smashing Mike, and I know you've had the pleasure of being in his company at PEW. I'm going to talk about two people because this I would love to see this match happen just for the charisma factor. If you have
Yeah.
one side of the ring, you had Mike. And on the other side of the ring, you had Grease. I don't think the world could cope with that.
Do you know what? No, like I don't even. Yeah, my brain's like, yeah, I'm stuck. Like Mike is such a personality, like such a character. I mean, he's the loudest person in the room 100% of the time.
Yeah,
But and then you try and describe Doris in a different way, and it's hard because they're both. He's the exact same. Both hilarious as well. Like great to be around. But yeah, that's thrown me that one. I was picturing that.
it's just a shame. We had it. We had that match booked actually over at Ignite, where we do our stuff, and fortunately, Doris couldn't make it in the end, so we had to be it. But his replacement that day, and I know it's someone else that you fought, and I think is not only criminally underrated for a big guy. The guy moves like a fucking cat, and that's Will Cruz.
Yes, Will Cruz. Yeah, he's the agility that man has is insane.
Ridiculous.
I watched him. I can remember when when 1PW had their
Yeah.
brief return, and I was there and just watching him. I knew he could do things like that, but I'd not seen it in person. Just doing a moonsault off the top to the
Yeah.
outside, the same thing I do, but look at the size difference. And I'm just sat there. I'm watching somebody do the same thing I do, and that I find easy. And I'm like, how? Like, how does a man like that do that and get up straight after as if he's not done anything?
Yeah.
Insane.
He actually moved the ring against Mike. The ring moved. He had Mike in the corner. He ran from the other corner and he splashed him. Jesus, yeah, the ring actually moved about well, it did move. There's no doubt about it. I think if anyone wants to go and watch that, if you go to Ignite's YouTube, you better see it. Just want to talk about one more team before we get back to you because they're a team that are close to my heart, and also that's another one that does Ignite a lot. Although they're not actually a team at Ignite, they're bitter enemies. That's the Rebellion. Taylor James, Jack Torino. You had the privilege of going in a number one contenders match with those. And look, when you look at these talents, and I mean there is just ridiculous talent on the scene. You're one of them. You get to think, oh, Joe Lando's another one that you've worked with, again, a great friend of the channel. When you look at these guys and you look at like people that are going to make it and the Reeses and stuff like that, do you ever get there and think this guy, when you're in a ring with someone and you think this guy's going to be going somewhere in the next sort of 12 to 18 months, and then do you want that to be you? Do you want people to look at you and think of the same that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first people I felt that about, which to be fair, wasn't from me being in the ring with him, it was more from being on the same show and watching
Yeah.
him, was Leon Slater. It was a promotion that didn't last very long in Sheffield area called Shooting Star Pro 2022, I believe it was, or 2021. And back then, there wasn't a ton of people behind him at the time. It was just, like a lot of other people just trying to make the way. And he just moves different. There's
Yeah.
something about him that I just thought he's going to be a star, and he is. I mean, he already is. Look at him. So, but yeah, there's people that I see like that all the time. But yeah, and then there's also the selfish side of it, where it's like, to me, I think in the last year, especially, I have come such a long way. Like I do a lot to try and create stories or like put other people over all the time, but I don't take enough time to credit myself, and I feel like if any year has shown that I'm ready for something like that, like a bigger step forward or a bigger stage, it is this last year. Like, because every time I'm asked to deliver, I do over deliver, if anything. So, yeah, there's people that I think are stars, but and then there's also, I feel like I'm well on my way to being one of the names that people probably should be talking about. And if they're not yet, I'll show them why they are.
Definitely
Why they should
so.
be.
Yes, definitely. So before we get into the last bit about your 2025 and we'll talk a little bit more about goals or maybe opponents that you want to face in Brit
Yes.
Rest in 2025. I've got some random questions. A couple of them I've told you, and a couple of them I haven't told you. So there's a couple that I always give you a few just because I know some of them are very difficult, and some of them even depends on the mood that you're in on the day. Which brings me to the first one. And that is your favorite wrestling theme song. And you're going to say Shawn Michaels, aren't you, or something like that?
You know what? I'm actually not, because
No.
although I love Shawn Michaels and I associate that music with Shawn, I feel like I say, I know I said I'm not into like the rock music and
Yeah.
metal music, but if there's one entrance music that always got me growing up, it was Edge.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
like, and I didn't know this until I went to watch Clash at the Castle in 2022,
Too.
or 2023. Game years all over.
Yeah.
2023, in Wales. And it was part of the tag match with Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
And hearing that live, because I'd never heard it live
Yeah.
before, the roof came off. Like, as loud as it looks on TV for people that weren't there, it was insane. It was like the loudest entrance of the night. So Edge is probably the one for me.
And you can sing it like you can other songs as
Yeah.
well. But yeah,
Yeah.
it does. In terms of sort of entrance music, now brings me to a separate question, which is I call it entrance aura, but it's really entrance presentation. So if you've been to a live event or anything like that, and there's just been the entrance from start to finish that has just got you, who would you describe? Or who would you say would that be? Get the words out.
I think, to not go for the obvious, I think that one would have to be Shawn Michaels.
Shawn
I mean,
Michaels.
yeah, it'd have to be. I mean, it's, as I say, the earliest memory I have, and then like just watching it from the entrance coming through the curtain to in the ring, like always drew me in. Always.
The one that always gets me is Undertaker. I've always had that. When that gong goes off and like obviously the place erupts. It
Yes.
does surprisingly get colder. I don't know if they do anything for that, but it does. Or it does feel like it gets colder anyway. It may just be getting caught in the moment. But we had a few people on the show that have had the privilege of sharing a ring with him, and they were saying that when you're in that ring and that gong goes off and that guy is walking and he walks slow, obviously, to that ring. I think even Matt Cardona said he literally shat himself because it was just like getting in there with like I think he said he had goosebumps. It was legit because you're staring right at the entranceway and this big nearly 7 foot
Yeah.
dude, but it's the aura that surrounds it. It's the smoke, it's the lightning, it's anything else. But yeah, Shawn Michaels has another one for a lot of reasons. Well, they've got the music, he's got the pyro as well, and when they say the music suits the wrestler or the character,
Yeah.
right? It does with him. It certainly does with the Undertaker. Both of them do. The one that I don't like is Kane because I've literally crapped myself on a few occasions when that pyro has gone off unexpectedly. It's because they used to have it where sometimes when he first debuted, he had a bit of music first and then the pyro.
Yeah, the intro. Yeah.
Then he changed it to slow chemical and it was pyro first, music later. And I always tell this story because it was was at Manchester. It was the first. I'm sure it was the first ever live Raw taping or something like that. Anyway, we went up there. And the storyline at the time was Kane and Lita were having a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
You remember that one? And
Yeah.
Snitsky had killed the baby. And this is, I mean, whoever wrote this was fucking hell. Anyway, Snitsky cuts his promo. And the line at the end of the promo, I'll never forget. And it was the only thing dead around here, Kane, is your baby. And the crowd, you could hear it was like, oh, everyone just sort of went like that, and it was like a collective. And then I'm sure it was like a four-way tag had started in the ring. So your eyes are over there, and the next thing you know, this ball of fucking orange light has just gone bang. Everyone in like the full. I mean, we were quite low down. And that was, yeah, that was another one. And the only other one that done that for me was I was on the entranceway when Batista come out.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can picture.
yeah. So I picture that one. Yeah, Kane and Batiste, and I got my bald head got sparked by Booker. No, not Booker T. The SmackDown pyro on the same show as the fireworks used to come down for the SmackDown.
You've been through it.
What a show that was. Yeah, loved it. Anyway, going back to some questions. So another one that I didn't give you was if you could debut at any pay-per-view, what one would it be?
Ooh, are we talking, for context, are we talking pay-per-views that have happened or just any?
No, any.
I think for excitement, it'd have to be a Royal Rumble, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's the most exciting, 60 plus minutes of the year. I mean,
2
it's
hours
weird
now,
because
if you count the weekends.
WrestleMania is the biggest show, but the Royal Rumble's more exciting. It's so weird.
We got 2 hours. We got more than that now. You've got 2 hours with the women's Royal Rumble as well.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
60 minutes times two. Speaking of Royal Rumbles, that brings me quite nicely. Obviously, we are in Royal Rumble season, and this is going out before the Royal Rumble hits the screens. And this is a difficult one because obviously it depends. Are we done this on the Raw tape, our Raw review? Who's your final four for this year's men's Royal Rumble?
Ooh, the men's one. Okay, so I feel like I've got a bit of an advantage because at the time of recording, I've watched Monday Night Raw when a few people have been
Go
announced.
bye.
So it's I don't like going with the predictable,
Yeah.
the biggest names, but because a lot of the time you'll find for storyline wise, someone might get thrown out early, things like that. So I think John Cena's in there, 100%. I can see him having a bit of a not as much, but kind of a Shawn Michaels vibe from 2010. Trying to make it to get that last WrestleMania or whatever. I think I want to say Punk and Rollins as well, and then probably Roman. But then again, you never know. Somebody could chuck one of them out early to set up for something. It's hard. This year's I'd say, for the men's, is probably one of the least predictable in quite a few years.
No, it is. You're right. I've gone for three of those. I've gone for Punk, Cena, Roman, and I went for Braun Breaker because they always have someone that I always feel that they always have somebody on the periphery that's I think Dolph Ziggler done it one year and he was in the final couple. So that was my four. For the women's one, I didn't do a final four, but I done a prediction of potential surprises and call ups, and I went with like Julia. I said Jordan Grace because I think it's pretty obvious that's going to happen. But I done two different ones. I said Nikki Bella because she was on the first Raw and there's talk of it. And then as a storyline thing, I've said Becky Lynch would win it, but I said that number 30 would be AJ Lee. And Becky Lynch
Yeah.
would eliminate AJ Lee. Punk would eliminate Rollins, and it was set up Punk and AJ Lee and Becky Lynch and Seth for Elimination Chamber.
That would be stunning, wouldn't it?
I know. I think we're in the wrong business. I think I should be booking it. No, that was my thing. I'm not going to ask you about the women's one because the women's one's a bit more difficult. Because I think, like, as I said before, there's loads of other people in it. And then the men's one, I said Josh Alexander would probably debut as well.
Okay, yeah.
Potentially. Anyway, that's that one. I'm sure there was another question, and I think oh yes, John Cena one. Sorry, you mentioned Cena, the man that's trying to get 17 title reigns. In your opinion, in his retirement year, does he do it? And if so, when?
Ooh, I feel like, so just going off of thinking into it, I think if Triple H has shown anything, it's that he ultimately, whether it's a long story or not, gives people what the majority are asking
Yeah.
for, right? So based on that and the fact that he hasn't got the time on his hands to do a long-term story with John Cena, I think it probably will happen. Now, I don't know whether that would be a win it in the last match, retire
Yeah.
as champion, or if it would be him having somewhat of a reign with it. So I think he will. I'm just gonna go that he will. Whether it happens at WrestleMania or not, it's hard because I don't know. You know, a lot of people for years have moaned about how predictable it is, and then now that it's not, they also don't like it because it used to be being predictable. So
Yeah.
it's like, I'm sat here pulling my hair out, thinking I don't know.
No, I think I kind of agree. I think it happens. He might do it on his last night, retire, and then they do some sort of tournament, or they do it old school. He retires, and he wins at the end of December, whatever it is, when he's going to retire. He retires, he drops the belt, and then they do the classic Royal Rumble where the winner becomes the champion next
Could
year
do, yeah.
in Saudi Arabia, of course.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
The only thing good about that's the fact that we get to watch you eating our fish and chips at
Yeah,
6 o'clock at night.
that is true.
That is true. Let's go back to you now. 2025. Did you do one of those lists that I see wrestlers do where they say, I want to wrestle these guys? And if you did, who chuck us a few names on that list?
I didn't do one of them lists this year, but I have names in my mind as to who I want to wrestle. And so I found as well, just before I go into that, is that when I've had intergender matches with a lot of the women on the scene, I have so much fun. And I feel like there's room for more intergender wrestling in the
Definitely.
UK. So I think my top two probably at this point would be Robbie X
Oh, I love Robbie.
and Liz Evo. So Lizzie, I can't say enough praise about Lizzie, whether it's personally, professionally. Like, love watching her work, love her as a person. Robbie X is the exact same, great guy, and what more can you say about him in the ring? But then, yeah, other people like, Leon Slater, I'd love to. And then there's Rio. So there's so many. So many. You know what's funny? Last year, one of the names that was on my list for last year was Scotty Rourke, and I happened to wrestle him like 3 weeks later
Yeah,
at
you did.
wrestling in Newcastle.
Yeah.
Me and Scotty have both said to each other that we'd love to do it again, just with a bit more time, because I think we must have had about 8 to 10 minutes. So hopefully at some point we'll get to do that with a lot more time as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I agree with the intergender. Harley Hudson's. I know you've wrestled Harley as well. She's another great one, another TNA prospect. Look, when we talk about long-term goals here, and look, if you had a crystal ball, there is enough. We finish off on one final question, which I did say I would ask you in a minute, but there's one more question before that. Like, look, long-term goals. If if you had to choose a company, whether it would be WWE, WTNA, NWA, Noah, New Japan, where do you think your character and the way that you wrestle suits best?
Ooh, that is quite a good question, It's very good. It's hard because I feel like a lot of people get me wrong sometimes. A lot of people see that I am able to do more of the indie style stuff, and I've got the cardio there, so I can go like that. I mean, I wrestled Leon Cage a few weeks ago, and literally had no choice, which is a great thing. Great lad. But I think for me, I like to mix it as well because I pride myself on the fact that although I can go like that, I also come with a ton of character as well, and I feel like character is what made me fall in love with it, and that character is where I saw most of it in WWE. So I feel like me as a person, in terms of how I adapt and how if somebody tells me to go out and act a fool or act an idiot or do this or do that, like I feel like I'm quite good at adapting. So I'd say for my style and personality, I'd say WWE. But I don't know if that's just me telling myself that because that's what's been my dream since I was a kid. So I
Yeah,
could be wrong. Yeah,
maybe.
you know.
Maybe. We'll have to see. And the last question before we wrap up, and you know I'm going to ask you this, and maybe I know the answer now we've had a chat, but you get an opportunity to wrestle any wrestler, any wrestler, wherever in the world, doesn't matter who, who would you? I tell you what, will make it a bit more interesting. Let's
Yeah.
do a fatal four-way. Let's make it three. One of those guys, one of them has to be a Brit Rest guy. The other two can be whoever. Who's your three that you're going to wrestle?
Ooh. Okay. So if I was, are we saying current wrestlers or anybody?
Anyone?
Anybody. Okay. So obviously it would have to be. I'd have to put Shawn Michaels in there. I
Yeah,
can't
I
not.
thought we were going with that. Yeah,
From British wrestling, I would say Robbie X because
yeah.
I feel like I've been on similar shows, and Robbie's one of them first people that I saw and was really impressed when I first started, and it still never happened where I've never actually shared a ring with him, whether that's a 4-way, a 6-way. No, I've never been in the ring with him, tag match, nothing. And so Robbie X. And the other one is another wrestler that I used to grow up watching and I absolutely love just for the creativity and how original everything he does is, and that's RVD. I loved, like, I cannot tell you how much I loved RVD as a kid, always. So, and he's still wrestling now, so I feel like, maybe if my prayers are answered one day, it could happen, but
Well, who knows? RVD, he could come over here to the UK. I wouldn't never rule it out in this day and age. But Adam, it's been great talking to you. But before you go, where can anyone get hold of you if you're available for bookings? And what have you got coming up that you can tell us?
yes, so, so in terms of getting hold of me, um, I'm on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Adam Bolt underscore. Instagram is Adam Bolt Wrestler. TikTok, I use that. I post, well, it's a share between wrestling and my dog. So if you want to see that, it's Adam Bolt Wrestler as well. So in terms of what I've got coming up, so this year I know, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share this, but I'm going to anyway. I know Wrestle Carnival is coming back this year.
It is, yeah,
Okay, I will be taking part in that in some form
right.
of fashion. I'll be back there. True Grit, I'm going to be at True Grit a lot more now. I'm holding their belt. I'm hoping to try and put some more spotlight on some more LGBT wrestlers as well and get the title defended as much as I can. TNT Extreme in Liverpool, I'm back there more regularly than I was. Got a match coming up at the end of this month with Shay Monet, actually. Some of the bigger promotions, like True Grit, TNT, I'm going to be there a lot regularly, and hopefully, I wish I could share more details, but hopefully it won't be long if you keep an eye on my socials that I'll be announcing some debuts for 2025 as well. So, yeah.
Interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. Just a few bits on us before I let you go. We're recording, so tomorrow, bearing in mind that tomorrow's interview may air before this one, but it's just because of it's another series. It's our NWA Spotlight. That is with Hollywood Haley J. She'll be coming on tomorrow. Talk to me and Fiona. I can announce now because, well, it's out in public knowledge that our turnbuckle champion, Mr. Mark Trude, has decided not to defend the turnbuckle championship at the next Ignite show on February the 9th. Adam, if you want to come and take that belt off him, please. No, he actually, in all fairness, there is two reasons. One, he doesn't like the fact that I booked him in a fatal 4-way and I booked him to defend it in a tag match. I'm not quite sure why he thinks that's unfair, but legitimately, he's just announced today that he's going to wrestle for Noah with tag team partner Kieran Lacey. They're going over to Noah. So obviously, and another thing, congratulations on Mark True becoming a dad. It's nice to see you can do something properly. Anyway, but good luck in Japan, Marky boy. But don't worry, because by the time you get back, you will have another number one contender because we are going a little bit into Wales, funnily enough, for the Aluna's going to be one of the people in that match. She has been knocking on the Ignite door. I think she's knocked it down now to a point where we have to. Well, not that we want to give an opportunity, but she deserves the opportunity the most. The crowd love her, so she's going to be in there. But she's going to be in the triple threat match. You mentioned intergender. wrestling. She's going to go against Harrison Bennett, and she's going to go against Shane Hook. So if Aluna does want the opportunity to take on Mark, you've got a bit of a job on your hands, Aluna. But that will be happening at Chapter 4 over at 96 Shenley Road in Boreham Wood. Go to Eventbrite, type in Chapter 4, you'll be there. And then lastly, our show will be, yes, we will be doing Buckle Up 3. I know it's been out there, it's been announced. I will be announcing a date of Buckle Up 3 on the show in 4 weeks' time at Ignite. So just make sure you keep an eye on that, because the date may be changing from its usual slot. So hence why I've got to announce the date. But anyway, Adam, look, it's been great having a chat with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Good luck with everything for 2025. I will definitely be checking you out at Carnival, because I'll be there. I know Gary really, really well, and we're going to be going to a Carnival show. So hopefully you'll be there. And who knows, maybe you'll come down to Shenley Road and grace us with your presence at Ignite soon.
I feel like you've just sold me on the show, so it might be sooner than you think.
Let's hope so. Guys, this has been another Independent Showcase. He's been the great Adam Bolt. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. Till next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and good night.